I actually still don't know if it starts recording when I press the button or when it connects to YouTube. But it doesn't really matter, does it? Because... Perfect. 3 seconds in. Alright. You know the deal. I always say I'm going to put the description in the YouTube video, but I don't, because I'm literally just that, running around with my head cut off all the time, that I never do it. Maybe I'll do it. I'm honestly not going to commit. I don't want to lie. I mean, it's not really a lie, because when I say it, I mean it. I mean it when I say it. But then later it doesn't materialize. Raises an interesting philosophical question. If you say something and mean it at the time, but then later it turns out to not be true, was that a lie? It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question, because at the time it's true. If I say right now, I am planning on putting the timestamp in the description, that's true. But then if I don't do it, it was a lie. I guess it's really the phrasing. I'm pulling up the picture right now. I'm not just like sitting here absentmindedly talking to you. OPHANIM painting hours going down. I'm not even going to proofread it. I'm not even going to proofread the tweet. The tweet is sent. The stream is on. People are here. It's going down. It's another Tuesday night in the studio. What's up, Pablo? Pablo is the first one here. How's everything? Everything's great, man. Everything is great, honestly. Been really busy, but that's good. I mean, it could be a lot worse. Could be a lot worse. I'm hoping to close out the month in a very powerful, ideal situation. By the end of the month, I want my commissions wrapped up. Then I'm not taking any more on. I got myself back in the same situation I was in before. What's up, Ren S, by the way. I got myself, this is a pre-show. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the pre-show. Everybody being the two of you, the only two people here, but that's fine with me. I got myself back in the same situation, almost. It's not as extreme. Last year, I feel like I spent the whole year being like, wow, I have 10 or like 20 projects all cooking at, turn the oven knob to 3, and I'm trying to keep track of 20 little things, and it's taking like a full year to do something that should take a month. That's how I spent the whole year last year. So this year I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I'm definitely not at that level, but I'm like toying with it a little bit. Like I have just one or two many things going on at once, so I'm pulling back and I'm like, okay, whoa, don't want that to happen again. So I'm hoping to wrap up the month in like a very powerful spot. If you're on Patreon, not trying to plug, I'm just like casually talking to you guys. But I have all this, it happens every time. I have like 5 or 6 like super dope things that are just hovering between like 50 to 95% done. And it happens every time. I don't want it to be that way. I want it to be like, boom, cooking the souffle, it's done, it's out. Now I'm starting the next thing. But maybe my mind is just too disorganized, I feel like part of the theme of the last month has been me kind of accepting the nature of an artistic situation. Someone, I think in the chat, maybe said it last time, maybe the other time, maybe a few times ago. They were like, you're not a factory, it's not a linear process. And I was like, but I want to be a factory. Honestly, that's kind of that would be ideal. But whatever, it's all good. What else is going on with me, man? I got something really crazy going on in my life, personal style. I can't tell you guys yet, but I'll tell you guys later. But that's been like throwing my world for a loop. Finally, the studio has returned to normalcy in terms of the dog. If you were here last week, that was a very hectic episode. Thank you for being here. But finally, everything's back to normal. My house guest has left, so the dog has returned to her normal state. I literally spent like 3 weeks. We're not going to talk about the dog at all this episode, because that was like literally the whole theme of the last episode. But I spent like 3 weeks with the dog like 1 foot away from me the entire time. It was kind of cool because it was like a little military style. Like literally, if I go eat breakfast, like I'd bring the dog and like have her sit and eat, and then come back in here on the leash the whole time. It's kind of cool, but it really messed with my workflow. I could only jump into things like 45 minutes at a time. So now I'm back to normal. But enough about me. What else do I have going on? I found this picture. I think I showed this one other time, but I found this. I literally just, speaking of like the disorganized nature of art, I literally just find drawings just around. Like I'm going through a folder and I'll find a drawing and be like, well, that's really cool. So I found this drawing. I don't know if I showed this before. I did this a really long time ago. I think it was when I first moved here. But I was like, this is chill. I totally forgot I made this, but this little knight, right? He's on this horse. And then it's kind of a play on that picture where the guy's at the edge of the dome. So he's looking at the night sky. Then I got this window in the night sky. So I like doing that. It kind of implies like the night here is like its own picture plane. So I found this. I literally found it on my board over here. I have this board behind me. If you do any creative stuff, this is kind of a good habit to get into, in my opinion. But I have this board back here that's all these pictures that I don't want to lose track of. So I literally just pin stuff on this board. And that was a good idea at first, but now the board has built up. So it's like layers. There's like layers and layers, and I can dig further and further back into the board. Like here's another one. I'll pull up another one. This isn't anything crazy. But I went to fish at this spot. Maybe I showed this before. Maybe I didn't. But I went to fish at this spot, and I was like, oh, this would be chill, like with a treasure chest and this mountain over here. And I tried to like capture the light a little bit with like markers, not a huge deal. So I have all these images back here. What else is going on with me? We'll hang like 5-10 minutes. Not 10 minutes. That's way too long. We'll hang like 3 more minutes. We'll pull the trigger at 7:05. I feel like that's normally how it goes down. But otherwise, this is a good pre-show item. It's a good pre-show item. Check this out. We're kind of mixing the pre-show and the beginning of the show all together. I thought the theme of season 3 would be that everything would be like totally systematized and rigid, but actually it like turned out to be the total opposite. So it's kind of cooler though. So I found this book. I did post this on Twitter, so maybe you saw it, but it's kind of cool to see it in video too, I guess. But so I go to these stores and I'm looking for old books, right? Mostly it's a byproduct of what my wife enjoys doing. The only time that I leave the studio, I'm like so pathologically committed to making as much art as possible. The only time I leave the studio is if I have to do like real life things or like spend time with people that care about me for some reason. So it's kind of a byproduct of my wife who likes looking at, you know, old clothes and stuff like that. So I started making a collection of old books. You were here maybe when the camera wasn't working. We went over like my whole old book collection. That was pretty cool. Very glitchy episode. But I found this, and it's one of my favorite things I've found so far the whole time, actually, because this is a really cool artifact. And the whole reason I started picking this stuff up, it's sort of more like an artifact collection than like a library. You can see it's got this gold edge paper. Looks really sweet on the camera, actually. And you probably can't read it. You can't really even read it in real life, but it has this dope seal on the front. And I'll pull up what the seal actually is. So this book, if you've ever heard of Christian Scientists, Christian Science, or seen those Christian Science reading rooms that are around places, or there's actually a publication. It's called like the Christian Science Monitor or something, and it's actually a pretty reputable publication. I had this professor who was well, I don't want to say what field he's in. Sorry, can't reveal that, but he wrote for them sometimes. He had nothing to do with religion or Christianity at all. So it's actually a pretty reputable publication, and Christian Science was like this whole movement that was oddly popular in America. So you can see, I'm not going to refocus the camera, but you can see they have this seal right here. And the seal says, it's pretty cool. It says, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. And it's got this cross running through this crown right here. It's pretty awesome. And this is pretty cool because this is like the book that this woman named Mary Baker Eddy wrote to sort of start this movement called Christian Science. And in case you're like, well, I like Christianity, and maybe you're like, well, I like science too. Well, great, because there's nothing really to do with either of those topics. Put on my Jerry Seinfeld voice and say, Christian Science, what's the deal with that? It's not Christian and it's not science, actually, though. And this is kind of cool because I think she wrote the book. I thought it was the late 1800s, but actually the first copyright renewed 1903. So she wrote it in 1875. And this one is from 1930. So it's kind of cool because the movement would have been going hard at that time, and someone actually had this book in the 30s. You can see the bindings kind of tore up here. But they even made notes and stuff like that. You can see these pencil marks in here. So this person, like, someone actually read this like almost 100 years ago. And they must have been kind of into it because the notes go pretty far in here. You know, it's like a 700-page book, and the notes go all the way up to the 200-300. So they at least put a pretty big dent in this book. And it's pretty cool because part of my interest, for a variety of reasons, it really hits like all the different larger topics that I feel like, you know, I never want to stagnate intellectually. It could be kind of easy for me to just be like, you know, oh, here's the 5 or 10 things that, you know, I kind of conjured up over the years, and I'm just going to keep juggling them and, you know, re-overlapping them and hashing them out and stuff. But I don't want to be like that. And one thing, there's a node. We've talked about this a few times, but this is a good example of it. Of these new American Christian movements from like the 1800s, really in the 1800s mostly. You have like the Shakers, Christian Scientists, Seventh-day Adventists, Mormons even. You have a ton of like just boom, 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 boom. America's like churning out all these different manifestations of Christianity. And it hits a lot of the nodes that I'm into, Part of it is like proto-New Age, like tracing the ethnography and genealogy and lineage of these weird ideas that are now almost the default and omnipresent. Like this is a really, really, we're going to start the show in like 1 second, but if I started the show, this is what I'd be talking about anyway. This is a really good example of it because there's this whole school of those different new forms of Christianity I mentioned, and sometimes they're actually lumped together and called like the metaphysical schools or something. But basically, she was all about things that I've heard from people directly, like God is really like this ultimate like mental principle, and her big thing at the time was like sickness is actually caused by bad ideas in your mind. So their whole if you've ever known any Christian Scientists, or I don't know what to call them, Christian Science followers, but they're like Christian denomination, they would say. What they're really about is like, not really about, but a big aspect of it is basically not going to the doctor. I mean, you can go to the doctor if you like break a bone or something, but my wife knew this girl who grew up under Christian Science, and she had like vertigo or something, and she couldn't even go to the doctor for vertigo because the whole premise of their medical idea is that sickness is caused in the mind. It's caused by these like bad ideas, and to heal people, all you have to do is get these like bad ideas out of their mind. And I knew that, and I'd heard that, and I thought it was really strange. But as I went deeper into this, it's kind of interesting because what that's based in is almost this type of Gnostic view of the world. It's almost like a mix of like New Age and Gnostic Christianity together in the 1800s in America, because it's based in this idea that actually the spiritual world has primacy over the physical world, and the physical world is all an illusion, and we kind of like create it in a way. So she jumps off and basically says what I just said, that any sickness is caused by the mind, and her whole thing was about healing people via fixing their minds. And it dovetails with a lot of really weird, interesting stuff that we'll probably talk about. We're not going to do the whole show about this, but it's something I kind of picked up and thought was interesting recently. So we're going to talk about it after the intro. What's up, everybody? How's it going? I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well also. I used to drink coffee right before the show, and I went back to watch one episode, and I was crazy amped. Then I realized, there's birds outside. Maybe I can take it down a little bit. Maybe I can take it down a notch, because sometimes life is stressful, and the show can be an oasis from the spiritual battlefield, kind of. Anyway, though, I do want to jump into the painting. I've been really enjoying the sort of experimental, not really knowing where it's going, pushing the CMYK thing. So we're going to do that. I think next week we'll start again on a theme. I was thinking about when we did season 2, and we did the sort of prophetic visions and dreams. We did visions and dreams in the Bible for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and not that we hit all of them, but we really hit like a really large number of them. And that was pretty awesome, and I was kind of reflecting, and I thought, going through scripture, hitting a theme like that, moving along, is a really good way to kind of chain things together and just move through the text in that way. I thought that was pretty cool. And I wasn't sure what the next theme would be. You know, I was like, we did dreams and visions. I don't want to go back to that. We did prophets for a second, but then it's kind of weird. I'm painting pictures of the prophets. Like, I'm more like the symbolic exploration of things. And if you were just here for the pre-show, I was talking about this Christian Science thing, and I was driving along with my wife, and I was telling her about this. And she said something interesting. She said something interesting. She said, well, what would you say to that person? You know, if you're talking to a person and they're saying, I'm Christian, this is what I believe in, this stuff. Which is an interesting angle for me. I feel like I've learned, the way that I learn mostly is by hearing people kind of argue and debate. I actually listen to people debating on the street and things like that recreationally when I'm doing art. So it's interesting for me to put myself in those shoes and say, well, what would I say to this person? And the first thing I thought of was, well, this woman is saying that scripturally, Christian style, what we should be doing is trying to heal people by fixing these wrong ideas in their mind, and that sickness is caused in the mind. And then when you heal people, what you're doing is like clearing their mind of these bad ideas that are causing them to be sick. So I thought, well, in scripture, is that really how people get healed? I mean, not really. Isn't there a story where some woman like sneaks up behind Jesus and touches his cloak, and then she gets healed, right? So he didn't even know it was, he knew it was happening, obviously, because he's omnipotent, but physically, he didn't fix some weird idea in her mind, right? She just touched his cloak. And there's all different stories of healing in the Bible, and I was thinking about it, and I thought, that would be a pretty cool theme. So I think that's what we'll start next week, is maybe we'll go through the different kind of healing passages in scripture and see what we can take out of that. Thought that would be kind of cool. Anyway, though, closing this little thing up right here, yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking all about this, and the other thing I've been hitting recently, I just want to talk to you for a minute before we jump in the painting, so you know where my head is at before we unload the contents of my head, and possibly your head also, onto the paper. I was also looking at some Seventh-day Adventist stuff and hitting their history and things, and it was really interesting because, we talked about the genealogy of New Age ideas and where these things come from, and this kind of perennial tendency to gravitate towards these weird kind of Gnostic New Agey ideas. And I was poking into some Seventh-day Adventist history stuff, and it's interesting because that was also an accelerated version, in a way, of the other thing that I'm really interested in that dovetails with all this is the American Christian situation and what the unique thing is there and what it means to be a part of that and how that's manifested through time. Because over time, as I've gone deeper into my amateur theological studies, I think that you would also probably agree with this. Maybe that's just me projecting, but there is something about the American Christian energy that is about it's simultaneously, let's break away. Let's get rid of all this stuff that's accumulated over the years. We're looking back and we got all these weird traditions where this isn't in the Bible. What's going on? So let's clear it out. We're going to do something totally new. Flip, that is what the church originally was. And I feel like as I go through more and more manifestations of American Christianity, that's sort of the underlying premise and energy. How can we clear out this dusty old closet to get back to this church that we're reading about in scripture? I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying that that's what I feel is the tendency. And it's an interesting paradox because, I'm a little bit more sympathetic to the tradition-oriented forms of Christianity. I was talking to someone recently in my DMs, and we were talking back and forth, and he said, I feel like the difference between us is I'm a little bit more leaning on scripture, and you're a little bit more leaning on tradition. And I said, well, yeah, that probably is the case. And it's just interesting because in the Seventh-day Adventist thing, I'll talk about this just for 1 second, and then I'll get to the picture, but I feel like it was a really interesting node to hit where that paradox manifests itself, because that's kind of what they were doing. I mean, I'm not even saying it in a negative way. I just feel like that was kind of the subtext of what they were doing. They were like, why do Christians celebrate on Sunday? They kind of thought it was a Catholic thing, actually. It's pretty interesting. They thought it was a Pope thing, the Pope just arbitrarily chose Sunday. I mean, I'm kind of comically giving you the gist of it. I'm sure they could make a more intelligent case for it. But they kind of thought that worshiping on Sunday was a Catholic thing, and they're like, we're not Catholic, and they had this scriptural evidence that actually it's Saturday and we should keep the Sabbath on Saturday, and that's why they're called Seventh-day Adventists. But it was interesting because as you get further into their history, they hit this little bit of a wall, in a way, where these questions start to come up And me from the outside, I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, this is what tradition is for. Tradition has answered these questions already. You guys are kind of just trying to wing it. Not that it's a good or a bad thing. Maybe you shouldn't just automatically defer to tradition, but it's just interesting because eventually they hit this node of looking at the old law and the Old Testament, and these guys kind of come together and they're like, well, if Jesus kind of freed us from these old laws and the old ceremonial laws, isn't that part of what keeping the Sabbath was? But our whole religion is about keeping the Sabbath, so how do we square this circle now? Like, what? And the other interesting thing is that after about 50 or 60 or 70 years, I'm not giving you the official history, it's just what I found interesting. Way in the beginning they wrote this book, and part of the book was this interpretation of Daniel and the different horns on the beast in Daniel. We actually did a painting of it a long time ago. And someone comes along later and they're like, actually, the way this guy wrote this book, he interpreted the horns to be these nations, but actually this horn is incorrect. This horn is supposed to be a different nation. And it caused this whole explosion inside of the religion because, not half, but some people were saying, well, yeah, I mean, if this book is wrong, let's just change it. And then other people were saying, well, but this is the book that the whole religion is kind of based around, aside from the Bible. This is like the book that lays out what it means to be a Seventh-day Adventist. So if we start changing this book, isn't the whole religion going to fall apart? And it's such an interesting microcosm of the issues that I feel like naturally arise when you break from tradition, paradoxically, to try and get back to a tradition that you're seeing in Scripture. Maybe it's real, maybe it's imagined. And I feel that energy in American Christianity a lot. I feel like when I talk to people who are Baptist around here or things like that, I'm not even saying it's a negative thing, but I feel like the underlying subtext of the vector of their spiritual energy, often at least ecclesiologically, trying to sound smarter than I am right now in terms of ecclesiology, is let's get back to this church that we're reading about in the Bible. There it is, I'm reading about it, let's do that. And then it kind of all folds out from there. So that was interesting, and something I've been thinking about a lot recently. It kind of fits in with a lot of my work, I guess you could say, on systems and like thought systems and how we think about things and fit into these larger thought systems, and how we all have these larger thought systems that almost, encase us. It's almost like we're all these Gundams, honestly. It sounds really stupid. I never watched Gundam, but I think in the Gundam animes, you sit in a big robot suit, right? I mean, I don't know, maybe you don't, but you've seen the anime pictures of people in the robot suits. And it's kind of like that's what we do with these larger thought systems. And it's just really interesting seeing how that unfolds and what that means for us. And there's that paradox again of like, well, you don't want to just trust everything these other people are telling you, but at the same time, if you just totally wing it, you're just on your own and you're just totally winging it, right? And that's kind of been like the central crux of my own spiritual development. I really have wrestled with that for a really long time. There's no answer, as usually, I guess usually if someone has a monologue, it builds up to, and then here's the whole point. But actually, though, there's no point. The point is just the question that I have about it, and that's basically it. Makes me think sometimes I feel like, well, maybe the answer to this is just that you can't have a malleable thought system. Maybe you just can't have a malleable thought system, and all of this work that I'm doing trying to figure out what happens when you start tinkering under the hood of a thought system is trying to tell me that you can't. Once you start tinkering under the hood, you unmesh, you take one thing out and the whole thing eventually falls apart. And maybe we're not supposed to do that. Maybe the whole point is that you just have some revelation and thinkers that are far enough in the past, and you just base everything you do on what they said, and that's the only way to have a cohesive thought system. Maybe that's just the answer that's staring me in the face, but we're not going to figure it out right now. Anyway, what's the title of the book you got? Yeah, sorry, I'll check the chat really quick. Let's be a little more casual. I can actually poke into the chat instead of going really hard on some like monologue I prepared. The book is called Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by someone named Mary Baker Eddy. And I was also thinking about, kind of interesting, Christian Science and the Shakers were both founded by women. Just kind of an interesting note there. I don't have an exegesis on that, but I thought that was interesting also. I didn't realize it until I was riding home in the car. I was looking at the spine and I was like, oh, she's a woman. A woman started this. Anyway, someone had one of these Christian Science places next to them. Yeah, there's a ton of them. There's a Christian Science reading room in the town square a few minutes north of me. Let's all go. Let's all go to our local Christian Science reading room. Okay. So, let's get this going right here. So here's where we're at on the CMYK painting thing. This might be the last week that we just go hard on this, but I feel like there's still just a little bit more nectar to squeeze from this strange fruit. So that's what I wanted to do with you guys this week. So we figured out overlapping, mixing the colors is the way to go. They really interact well via mixing. In case you have never watched this before, you have no idea what's going on. We're trying to use CMYK colors, like what's in your printer, instead of like a classical painting palette, and seeing what we can do with that and get out of that situation. And then last week, we got a little bit more chunky painting style, like building up the layers of paint and stuff, and that looked pretty awesome. People really responded to that, at least here in real life. I don't know. Maybe you responded to it, maybe you didn't. So I just want to jump off from there and see what we can get going with all that. See if we can do something cool, keep it loose, keep it experimental right now. And that means I'm going to start with kind of a big brush. I'm just going to grab, I almost want a bigger brush. I do have like the bazooka brush right here. I think we'll start with that. And themes, I don't know. I kind of just want to wing it, honestly. I've been feeling with the experimental painting stuff, if we lock ourselves into an idea, then I just start slavishly adhering to this idea that already exists virtually in my mind. I think it's better to just leave it totally loose cannon style. We got these birds outside. It's definitely spring today. It is definitely spring. So I feel like the strongest color that I've gotten out of this, certain colors have certain strengths in terms of their hue and range and everything, is these dark purples. I normally never use this color. I never get into the purple color range, but I really feel like that's been the strongest. And we haven't really messed too much with using the white and the black. Again, in case you are just getting into the situation, normally with this kind of painting on paper, I would toy with the opacity, how transparent it is, and that white of the paper would be shining through the paint, and that's how I would control how light or dark things are. But here I do have white paint, so you can see I have two different ways of messing with the whiteness, the lightness of the color. I can let more of the paper shine through, or I can get the white paint in the situation. And I'm going to mix up this kind of like hazy purple. Let's just get it going. This color makes me think of like rain, storms, things like that. It's almost like a grape color. You'll see in a second once I get it together here. So let's get this blue out here. And I like that you can actually see the colors. I'm going to grab a little bit of the red. Perfect. And I'm going to start just super loose. I don't want to get it too dark initially. See, I'm even just not grabbing enough red here. Come on, let's go. Boom. There we go. And like I said, I never really get in this purple range, but the cool blue purples here, this is probably the color I'd be the least likely to use ever when I'm using the normal traditional pigments. Let's just start with a circle, but we probably won't keep it all entirely in a circle. Perfect. Nice. And like I say every week, probably part of the function of the show is getting other people into doing art. So you can see, even if you have no artistic prowess, maybe you feel you have no artistic prowess, I should say, you think you have no artistic ability. It's full Bob Ross mode right now. It's still just really fun to lay down color like that. It's still just really, really, really enjoyable. You can literally feel like it's like the tension like leaving your body, honestly. It's really tight. So I got this kind of like circle frame over here, and what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to wet these fibers in the center. I didn't really think there would be too much blue paint on there, but it's not a big deal. And you can see what's nice about going hyper watery like this is, so at first when I come down there's like these streaks, but then they kind of just fade out. There's so much water. I use this analogy almost every time, but it's like when you have a wet paper towel and you pick something up with it and you can see it fuzz out into the paper towel. That's basically the effect that we want here. I'm literally wetting the fibers of the paper. That's also part of what separates the paper that I'm using right now from something like printer paper. If you go get some paper from your printer and you tear it, you can actually see the fibers are crazy small. It's almost like ground beef or something in there. Like, you know, there's like the fibers are just these little particles. Whereas this paper, in an extremely bizarre analogy, is more like shredded beef. The strands are way longer. So if you tear into it, there's those larger particles there. And what I'm going to do is I want to just pick up a ton of this dark pigment right now and just come in. So see, what I want is I want this pigment to like fuzz out. I want it to fuzz, but I'm not getting the fuzz. That's not happening yet. So let's see what we can do about that. The paints all handle differently, and I'm still learning my way through this one. The other pigments, you know, I know what they're going to do every time. I'm 100% sure what's going to happen every time I do it, but with these, I'm not so sure. So let's see. And I'm going to come in with some of this red color actually in the center. Nice. Perfect. And I'm thinking about a few things in terms of what we're going to do here. I'm thinking about an angel, honestly. I think doing some kind of like seraphim or something would be really cool. And this is the other thing I've been doing. If you just come in with the paper towel, I can pick up the color. The thing that would be interesting about doing some kind of angel or something like that is that the strength of these pigments is really the coolness. When I think of an angel, I think of like fire, brightness, you know, things like that. But maybe we're going to come through and just make sort of like a cool colored angel. That would be pretty cool, actually. No pun intended there. So I guess already I kind of have to decide what direction I'm taking this, and I kind of want to just vibe out with the colors a little bit, but I feel like I kind of have to decide what direction I'm going to go in with this. I can't really just float like in the waiting room here too long. So I'm going to get some yellow in here. I don't want to just vibe with the two colors. And maybe we will do some kind of like seraphim, because that allows me to mess with how focused it is, like how focused the visual information is. So I'm going to start getting like the halo of light, let's say. What if I just throw out this yellow over here? Cool. Perfect. And I guess the main thing I'm going to be thinking about here is that I want it to be a lot looser than it is already. I wish that when I touched this, it like fuzzed out. Maybe you've seen me get that effect before. But it's really not happening with that big brush, so we're just going to see how it goes. And I'm going to paint in sort of like the outline of the seraphim right now, let's say. And I have a big decision to make right here. I could go in with the black and do the lines in black, or I can come in with a color and do the lines in a color. It's going to give it a totally different quality. I don't exactly know where we're going. My thought is that if I'm putting wings down, what would be really cool is if I put the wings down in a color, later I can come back and put the wings over it in black or in like a progression of like darker colors. And I think that would be really sick, because then maybe if the wings are just like slightly not lined up, the different colors would give it kind of a lot of motion and a really like powerful look. I think that would be cool. So that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to pick the background color, actually. This is kind of a trick that I guess you can do sometimes. I'm just going to use the background color. You can already see this is like pretty not opaque. And let's see, I think what we're going to do is do one of these seraphim where it's like the wings form the center structure. Sometimes I'll just take a circle and like throw it down. I actually have one right here. I'm going to pull it up right here. This is kind of a cute, like humorous drawing, obviously, but it illustrates what I'm getting at. Sometimes you put the face in and then the wings go behind the face. But in more like, I guess it's kind of more Eastern style. Sometimes what you get is the wings themselves. I'm just going to quickly throw this in so you can see what I'm talking about before we do it. It's kind of like the wings themselves. It's not really the best example, but you'll be able to see. The wings themselves make the space that the face is then in, which gives it a totally different vibe. This is kind of like ball cherub angel, but when the wings make the face, you get a little bit more of a, kind of like more of a serious vibe. So we're going to go with that right now. And I'm just going to go for it. I want to make sure the wings are big enough. Perfect. And this is not very dark at all, so even if it comes out poorly, it's not a big deal. But it will give us some room to make some kind of interesting like overlapping wings, I think. Cool. Perfect. Perfect. And I like to have that bottom feather like pointing out there. Cool. Let's do the same thing over here. Perfect. And yeah, if you want me to see something you say in chat, you have to write @OwenCyclops, otherwise I'm not going to see it. But I will check that out in 1 second. Perfect. And these I'm going to come out here. Boom. It's kind of nice painting with the birds. The birds haven't been here for a while. I guess it fully, officially is spring. And then at the end, what I would really like to do is come in tight and make some like tight details on the wings, kind of standing out from everything. For this project I was working on today, I had to look up, I didn't have to, I mean, I wanted to. Just moving the light really quick. I had to look up these images like of the Annunciation and of, you know, the Visitation and man, normally, maybe I will put the top of the face in here because I don't know. I mean, I don't have to give him 6 wings. I could give him 8 wings. There's no rule that says the Seraphim have 6 wings, is there? Do I want to put in the 2 and then... Yeah, I do, actually. Let's just do it. I didn't plan on doing this, but I think it'll look better at the end. So yeah, for this project today, I had to look up all these paintings of different biblical scenes, and there was one... There's like a moment. There's a moment of Western art history that's kind of forgotten, where people just painted these really awesome, frankly, like kind of trippy angels. And it almost got like erased, I guess. For a minute in the Renaissance they had them, and then it was a Northern European thing. But if you go back and look, especially maybe like Jan van Eyck angels, but I found one today that was Italian Renaissance. And the wings are just like tripped out. I mean, I hate to use that term because of its drug connotations, but they really are. Like there's some Italian Renaissance paintings where the angels have these just like technicolor wings. Technicolor maybe is a better word. And the feathers are all painted in these like varying colors, so maybe we'll see if we can get there. It's kind of cool. Okay, I'm feeling how this is going already. And let's see, I'm actually just going to come over right now already with a darker color. And let's see, I don't know if I want to, it already looks pretty cool the way we're getting these lines like running through the space. But I think I will push it a little bit. Let's see what happens if we don't have them lining up perfectly. It might not be enough of a gradient. But it would be cool to get that effect of like the wings almost like crazy, like flapping out and stuff like that. And the thing is, these lines are so light right now that they won't really be the defining feature when we're done. They'll be like way in the background. What we're doing right now, this is almost like if you ever hear like recorded music and you can hear like the tape in the background. You know what I'm talking about? And it gives it that kind of like nice quality. That's what we're doing right now. We don't want to just paint like onto the straight like white paper. We want like an interesting ground to paint on. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. It's almost like we're prepping the ground a little bit. So this won't be how it finishes out at the end. You might not even see this whole part at the end, but if we build it up as an organic process, it'll have kind of a different vibe at the end. I recently had the occasion to interact with the Quakers. I thought they'd be an interesting traditional New World Christian group. Turns out they're mostly super liberal and secular, basically. Yeah, they are. A lot of them are like that, actually. I haven't met too many Quakers, though. I knew this guy that called himself a Quaker, and I really didn't like him, honestly, so I tried really hard not to let that affect my whole view of all of them. But yeah. Have you ever seen the film Andrei Rublev? It's about a Russian icon painting monk in the Middle Ages. No, a bunch of people have told me to watch it, though. I really actually have to watch that, but I haven't yet. Okay, so we got this kind of interesting situation going on. I kind of just want to push it, actually, a little bit with the color. So I'm just going to come in with this purple right here, actually. And I'm just going to keep pushing the wings thing. Let's see how this goes. This isn't really the direction I expected to take, but it's kind of cool. So maybe we can just keep making it darker and darker and see how that turns out. And then what? We'll come on the end with like black or white or something. Looks kind of tight. I can imagine coming over this with black and it being like really solid. There's something about the Seraphim angels that are pretty awesome. I saw a few of them. There's one like Annunciation that had a Seraphim. I suppose that's not actually scriptural because it does say that it's Gabriel, right? That it does the Annunciation, but yeah. Perfect. Anyway, I was also really interested in some of the stuff I was reading because part of my other thing is I've just been like working too much, which, you know, whatever. Things could be worse, but, you know, I'm listening and reading. I wasn't really reading, honestly. I was mostly listening to it, but the Seventh-day Adventist stuff, and I'm like super stressed out about working, and their whole thing is like taking 1 day of rest every week. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I actually have no idea what their scriptural argument is for the fact that Christians are supposed to take a Sabbath day every week. It sounds kind of Jewish, right? Doesn't it? But I kind of do want to look into that because I would like to be convinced. If someone could convince me, hey, you know, you're supposed to actually take every... I made a tweet about that. Someone could convince me, hey, you're actually supposed to take every Saturday off for the rest of your life. Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Okay, cool. John said, my wife keeps bringing up the name Owen for baby names. How do you feel about the name Owen? Well, obviously I like it because it is my name. I think Owen's a really solid name, obviously. I kind of like the O. It sounds stupid, but I really like the O. I really like the OW in the beginning with the N because I thought probably way too much about this, but the N is kind of like sharp. You know, the EN is like a sharp sound, but the OW is more of like a round, like open sound. So I think it kind of balances out pretty well, honestly. It's almost like a little bit of a nocturnally name. Maybe that's a weird observation to make. And I think it's a corruption of John. I'm pretty sure Owen comes from Yophan, which comes from the name John. See, here's the thing. I want to throw in some fire or something, right? And I was wondering if we're going to mix in some warm colors. But if you look at this orange, I mean, you can see it on the camera even. It's not really that good. It's kind of like ketchup-y. You know, the strength of these colors really is in the cool colors. So we're not going to do that. And I'm going to put some more washing over what we have going on right now because I don't want to get locked in too much. Like if we end up covering up half of this, that's totally cool with me. I'm going to throw in some darker blue because I want to get some night in here. If we are going to do an image of an angel or something, and we can use the outside space, I want to get some night. So even though it's so antithetical to my style of working, I'm going to use a little black. I mentioned it last week, but I have this huge box of paints from like 10 years ago that I got somewhere. And it's literally like dozens and dozens of colors. But when I got it, I didn't even get a black because, you know, when I was trained doing art, you know, 16th, 17th century style oil painting, we would never use black. Then I got into like impressionist style, I guess you could say. Sort of an oversimplification, but wouldn't really use black there either. So using black is so unnatural to me. Even right now, adding black to this, like there's a part of my brain that's like, what are you doing? But let's try it. Because I want to get a little bit of the night kind of energy in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this brush. This is cool. I actually watched some Bob Ross stuff just to see how he does it. And he has like 100 brushes going at once. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, dude, that's what I got to do. So let's see. I'm going to try and get some night energy coming on over here. And we're just going to cover up, even like I said, some of the wing work that we did over here. Because we want there to be a lot of like layers at the end. If you're doing work where you're trying to build up something interesting, you can't get too attached at the bottom. You know, you can't get too attached to whatever's happening initially. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. And I'm just going to come in even with some of the straight black. Is that crazy? Maybe. Can't tell. Let's just come in with some of the black right here. I think we got to get some thicker paint. I'm trying so hard to use the paint like watercolor, but I don't think that's how the paint wants to be used. I think it wants thick. It wants thick layers. So that's what we're gonna do. And you know what could be cool even? We're not really married to this whole circle thing. I'm actually gonna throw some of the black down on the outside. Need some more black. Something about using the night sky, almost like a fog. You know, like the night's like rolling into our like otherwise colorful light scene here. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Black really is the most powerful color. In painting, you literally can't fight it. What is it, Rembrandt or Renoir? It was Renoir. Said I spent 40 years learning that black is the queen of all colors. It's probably my favorite art quote of all time. I'm just going to spread the black out a little bit too. Yeah, this is what we needed. Perfect. Just going to come in here. Nice. A little bit of the dry brush. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Okay. And while the black is wet, I'm going to see if we can even just throw down some stars in there. So I'm going to grab this white. Oh, this is black. I'm not used to these paints yet. So I'm going to grab this white. Perfect. See if we can throw some stars down here. And I'm just going to try and pick up the white. Perfect. It might be too wet though. The black might be too wet for me to... Yeah, close enough. Perfect. Now we got something going on here. Perfect. Great. Kind of vibing with a little bit of a sunrise thing going on maybe. Like maybe we can get the night with the sun or something too. That'd be pretty cool. I got this one light that's just casting a little bit of a glow. Perfect. Perfect. All right, now we got something going on here. And I guess we'll stay fully in the cool colors realm unless we decide to push like the sunrisey thing going on. I'm going to throw down a little bit more of the dark color around the outside. So I'm going to grab some blue over here. Cool. Perfect. And yeah, there's something about this like deep blue, the blue violet color, that is a very like modern color. If you look back in like Renaissance stuff or medieval stuff, I can't think of a mineral pigment that has this color. I used to be really into Tibetan art. Some people might know that. The weird thing about that though is that a lot of it ports directly over to other medieval artwork. It really is a medieval art style. Even though we say medieval, we mean Western. You know, there are other... Oh, dude, look at that fade. It's just so tight. It's just so tight. So we say medieval, we mean Western, you know, but there are other medieval things going on, and Tibetan painting really is another medieval art style. Oh, look at this fade. Are you serious right now? I mean, it's just... doing art is just so tight. It's just so tight. Sorry, I'm moving the lights around a little bit. Cool. Perfect. And they don't have purple, really. There's no purple going on there. We've talked about that before, but even in also medieval painting, you very rarely see purple. If you do get a purple, it's like the icy purple. It's like the muted, kind of light, pale purple, but you don't get that full saturation purple going on. So it really is, to me, like a modern color. I know like very bright pink dyes and stuff weren't invented until pretty late in the game. But even going back, you know, I think one of the only purple mineral pigments I could think of was amethyst. If you've seen amethyst, it's like a light purple stone. You can grind that up and make paint, but it's nothing like what we're working with here. I'll just throw down this magenta. The other thing I'm torn about, so I thought, you know, part of the interesting thing about this would be, you know, kind of us figuring out together how to use the CMYK colors. And I still can't tell if their strength is using them pure how they are, like just grabbing the magenta and throwing the magenta in straight up, or if I should mix them before putting them on the canvas. I really can't tell, honestly. It's really hard for me to tell. And we're going to start having to use a little bit of white because we're getting a little dark. I don't want to use the word muddy. It's not getting muddy yet, but we are getting a little dark in here, and I do want to change it up a little bit. Cool. I'm going to dry some things up in here, and we're going to throw some white down. Maybe we'll start like painting in this like seraphim angel. Yeah, someone said Phoenician purple. That's true, actually. The Phoenicians did have purple. That's kind of like what made them famous, though, right? I never knew how much of that was like modern exaggeration or if it was true, but we can kind of like just dry it up a little bit here. This also like mitigates some of the layers that we have going on. Kind of like brings them together. Perfect. Cool. All right. All right. I think I want one more layer before we put the angel in. Because if we put the angel in now, then I can't really go too crazy in terms of everything else that's happening. So I want to drop one more layer in. And I want to get some yellow and white and light because, you know, I could do it. I could do something safe and just, you know that it's going to come out good. But I think it's a little bit more exciting if we don't exactly know what's going to happen. And I think if we maybe push the light and dark up against each other a lot, that will be kind of the ticket. That'll be kind of the ticket here. Oh, I have so much room with the camera. Nice. So let's see if we can get some light coming down here. Interplay of light and dark, classic theological theme. What brush am I going to use? I'm going to use this brush. It's kind of big. Cool. And while we're hanging out here, I mean, what else has been on my mind this week? That's mostly what I've been thinking about. What we talked about in the beginning, kind of diving into some of those American manifestations of Christianity and stuff. There probably have been other things going on, but I haven't really thought about it too much. Thinking about just themes. Really kind of zooming out and deciding what themes I want to go a little bit more into. One of the things that I do with art is I can't show you. I want to show you, but it says what state I live in here, so I can't show you. But I have this paper, and something I would do every now and then is just literally go through all my symbolism books and take out symbols, and just literally I'd go through them and, you know, see, oh, acorn, that's a cool symbol. Basket, you know, just go through them and take out all these symbols and then pin it up next to my desk so I would have things to draw from, you know, whenever I wanted. But what I realized eventually was that, you know, I stopped doing that. Now I'm thinking more of like themes, like we talked about in the beginning, like healing, you know, things like that. I'm thinking more like zoomed out, like larger themes that I could hit or go into. Something about the yellow is not really like totally the vibe here, but let's see how it goes. Maybe we need some green, some blue-green in here. Yeah, it's pretty solid actually. Can't really see it. The yellow makes it look kind of like dirty, honestly, doesn't it? We're gonna go over that with white or something. Let me just pick this up. Cool. This maybe really is like cool color zone in here. Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna start coming in with some of the white right now. I'm gonna mix up the white and the blue, and that's how I'm gonna open up this kind of like white opaque on top space. Oh, yo, the other thing I've been getting into, which actually, that's the other thing I want to talk about. So the other interesting thing is like you might have seen me post about it on Twitter, maybe you didn't, but I've also been going into like the electricity situation in the 1800s, and it's so interesting. Oh, look at this color, so nice. Look at this, right? Look at this color, and then look what we have going on here. So I want to take this like bright light energy and like, not to use a pretentious terminology, but kind of like dynamically integrate it into what we have going on over here. So let's see. Let's just go for it. Let's just kind of try and get some of this light color in here and see what happens. So yeah, so I've been going hard into, and right now, just so you know, I'm thinking in my mind, I'm thinking about night sky and day sky. That's kind of how this ended up happening. So I'm going to bring some of this kind of day sky energy, and it would be cool if we could get sort of like a sunrise, day, night thing all mixed together. But it might end up like a total mess, but I don't think it will actually. But that's live TV. You could have watched pre-scripted TV if you wanted. Anyway, so yeah, I've been looking into the electricity situation in the 1800s and people researching like how it affects the human body. And not only is that totally insane, we can talk about it, but the interesting thing is seeing like how all these different like social things, these larger things that characterize a time period all come together to form a cohesive situation. I feel like that's one thing that I'm really into is like, you know, I don't think of like theology and spirituality, really cringe term, honestly, sorry, but that's just like the only way to describe it, as being divorced from everything else going on in the world. It's all integrated into like a holistic thing. And when it's your own time period, I think it's a little bit harder to put that together. It's a little bit harder to step out of your own time period and say, oh, well, clearly like this is related to this, and actually Facebook and these economic factors are related to my spiritual life. I mean, maybe we're like used to that because we hang out on like weirdo internet. But poking into the 1800 stuff, it's super interesting because it's so obvious when you get into it. Like the Christian Science thing is a perfect example because, You know, one other thing that I'm really into is not appealing to weird things of the past as though people were just like stupid, you know? It's like we talked about the Christian Science thing, and they're like, yeah, they basically were like, you know, don't go to the doctor, just heal yourself with your brain. And, you know, a lot of really, really intelligent people got into it. So of course there is, you know, some maybe like let's be charitable and say there's like a seed of validity there. You know, some of us are probably a little bit more on that page than others, but I don't think any of us would like not go to the doctor if we had like a really, really, really serious condition. Maybe you would. I'm not judging you, but the point is that I was thinking about it and going into it, and it's like, if you think about the time period that it was born in, doctors had a really bad success rate in the 1800s. So it kind of makes sense that this movement would come about that would say, yeah, well, just don't go to the doctor. Like, all that stuff is made up. Like, I don't know if you guys know, but if you look up, like, surgeon statistics and all that stuff from back then, the stats are, like, horrible. And I kind of saw someone present it as, like, you know, at this time, if you didn't go to the doctor or you did, you probably would have had the same chance of, like, doing okay or not. So it's just interesting because it kind of, like, contextualizes that and makes it from, like, you know, oh, sorry, my chair just, like, went down a peg. You know, this person's, like, totally, completely insane. It kind of contextualizes it within a larger time period. Maybe that's, like, a little obvious, but then it's interesting to, like, pull that out and say, you know, well, what does that mean for us? Like, how would someone, like, 100 years from now look back at us and say, oh, well, you know, of course they felt that way because of these larger, you know, socio factors going on at that time. Anyway, I don't know if that makes sense, but okay. So I'm feeling like we got the base going on here, and now we're going to start tightening it up. We got, like, you know, this is like the blurry version of the picture. But actually, I do like how it's looking right now. For a second, I was a little nervous. For a second, I was like, uh-oh, where's this going? But actually, now I'm feeling pretty confident. So what I'm going to do is, kind of window into what I'm thinking right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come through, and like I just said, if this is like the blurry version of the picture, I want to tighten up some parts, leave some parts how they are, kind of chaotic. We want like some of the chaos going on, that's good, but we do want to tighten it up a little bit just to make sure. I want one layer darker in the blue. I'm not getting it though. I want one layer darker. See, now it's like black. Now it's just black. How do I darken the blue? See, this is an interesting thing about working with these new paints. How do I darken the blue? Normally I would just grab the ultramarine. I would grab the ultramarine and then I would have the blue that I want. But I can't do that. Do I just use the blue right out of the tube? Is that the answer that I'm looking for here? Let's see. Maybe? I feel like this is even not the right color though. It's pretty good actually. Perfect. So I'm going to come in and just add some of these darker spots. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. Almost. Not exactly, but close enough. Hold on a sec. The do-it-yourself nature of the studio is not faked. I just had to fix my chair. And the desk next to me is actually made of 2 cardboard boxes. So in case you think I'm putting on, you know, playing a fake character here, I'm not. It's all real. Okay. Just want to get this shine out of here too, as long as we're just briefly fixing some things. Just feel like I could make it a little bit brighter. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Okay. So now we lay down the base layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play kind of like a little bit of like a cloud thing. I think I'm going to use the cloud motif to like tighten this up a little bit. So I'm going to grab some white over here. The thing is, I actually kind of like how the chaos looks in every individual spot, but I got to pick some places to like tighten it up a little bit. So I'm going to come through here. I'll grab some more white. Perfect. And same thing with a lot of those other groups. It's also interesting because, you know, you guys have probably heard of Kellogg's and like all those people. I don't know if anyone knows anything about Seventh-day Adventists. I don't think you grew up around a lot of them, but they're like super health obsessed in a way, and that also was like a product of the time period. We might have talked about this before, but it's one of my pet little interests in a way. But a lot of American Christians like literally thought that like white flour and all this stuff was like totally satanic. Like they actually thought that it was of the devil. And a lot of the weird like health things that trickled out of that come from like a really good place. Like the Seventh-day Adventists like became vegetarian, mostly. You don't have to be vegetarian, but a lot of them are vegetarian. Obviously, I'm not on that page, but I think it kind of came out of this place of like people first considering, oh man, like we're eating like garbage food, like we're eating like Frankenstein food over here. Okay, cool. Okay, so you can see even just these little white lines. I just want to add a little bit of focus into the chaos that we have going on over here. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now. Just so it's not like totally... I don't want to use the word a mess because actually I like the chaotic nature that we have going on here, but you know what I'm saying maybe. Even over here I'm going to add a little bit. I'll have just the full-on cloud shape out here. Let's get that little... Perfect. Cool. And then I think I'm going to add some darker clouds. I think I'll use a kind of like storm cloud motif to bridge the gap between the light and the dark. And then we'll come in and put this angel in and see what happens. But I just want to harmonize things a little bit before I put in that angel. And I also don't know what color we're going to put it in. I would like it again to be integrated with everything else. But I think we have a pretty sweet frame and color situation going on here, honestly. I mean, of course I do. I painted it, but... Perfect. And I want that, like, purpley color back. Actually, I don't want to add too much water because I don't want it to get too transparent. Cool. Perfect. I'm going to break up... See, the thing is, I'm looking at every space, and I actually like how each... little space looks on its own, but I got to pick some places to get cleaned up a little bit, so that's what I'm going to do. That looks good. Where else am I coming in here? Maybe I'll put a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Cool. I guess I got to do some more, but like I said, I like how it looks in each individual location. Okay, let's do one or two more. Over here. Maybe I'm doing the wrong thing by picking the spaces that are already kind of dark. Cool. Let's see. I'll get one or two more. And then we'll throw in this angel. I kind of like this. I don't actually want to like puncture that space. Maybe we're good. Maybe we're good right now. A little bit of it coming out over here. Break up the circle a little bit. I think we're good. Put this over here. Okay. Let's do it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry up some of these spaces. And I'm going to throw down. Cool. Perfect. Let's see, where else? Maybe over here a little bit. I just want to have like a crisp kind of like landing to paint on. Nice. Okay, this is looking pretty solid. Maybe if you have no idea where I'm going with this, you're like, I don't know, it kind of looks like a mess. But actually, this is exactly the ground that I wanted to paint into. Okay, we'll use this brush. I'm kind of torn on using white or black. Maybe I should use both white and black? I can't tell. Let's just see what happens here. And I'm going to kind of reverse course a little bit. And because I want the extra visual clarity, I'm going to put in that ball angel shape that we had initially. When we compared the two angel shapes, I'm going to use the circle angel shape. I mostly get my cherubs from the Renaissance painters. I love that you can, I don't know how good my mic is, but you can literally hear these bird wings outside. I can hear birds like flapping their wings outside. Perfect. And I got this blue in here intentionally. I want to see, I'm going to play a little bit with the tightness a little bit. And I got two options for the wings here. As I'm looking at this, I want to play with the scale a little bit. We're usually working at like one scale, like everything's just taking up the whole size. So it might be tight if I come in with the white and get like a ring of wings in here, and then maybe we'll get a few bigger wings on the outside. But I am just going to roll with the white. It feels like the move. I know I talked about colored wings and stuff. It sounded kind of dope, but I'm worried if I come in with any particular color, you're not really going to be able to see it. You know, because we have, even just right here, there's such a big gap in terms of value. Value, i.e. like how dark and light everything is, that I don't know if you'll be able to see it. So let's see. And I'm just going to kind of put a ring of wings in here. Yeah, it looks really good. Not too complicated. Maybe I only get 2 of the bumps. I would like to get more. I'm always worried things aren't going to look like wings, but perfect. That's how it went down. And I'm trying to wet up the paint a little bit so we get these like bleeds a little bit. But at the same time, the paint has to cut through the paint that's below it. So I'm playing a little bit of a dangerous game here. Let's see. This reminds me of a tattoo I made for someone once where they wanted this image of St. George's shield. And I put this like arrangement of 12 wings as like a disc in the center of the shield. That's what this is reminding me of right now. You know, it's also interesting because as I go deeper into my own artistic practice, you know, like I said, you're always looking for like new symbols and new themes and stuff, but eventually I feel like pretty much most artists just circle around a few themes and try and capture what it represents to them perfectly, you know? Like one day I'll draw the perfect wing, and then that'll just be it. Out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of wings that I've painted, I'll use wings in the perfect way, and I'll just hang it up. I'll say that was it. Cool. It almost looks like a sun. I'm actually kind of cool with that. I read this once, I don't know where, but I do like it a lot. It said wings are symbolic of a divine mission. Things that have wings are sent from God, basically. And I think that's really true, actually. Whenever I put wings on anything, that's what I think of. Okay. Huh. I'm looking at this right now. I'm looking at this with you, I guess. So it's definitely a really tight setup. It's a little not exactly as like regimented as I want, but I could do a few things with that. We got a really powerful setup here, deciding where we want to go, where we want to take this little vehicle right now. Because I could put a second layer of wings in, but then I think it'll be too like visually packed and busy. What I think I'm gonna do is maybe have the next layer of wings like coming out far. I really can't tell. We could also come in with a color and maybe maybe like darken it up coming out of the white. Really can't tell what the move is here, honestly. But I guess we'll find out together because it's going to happen imminently. And I would like just a little bit of like a white fade up here. I don't even know if we'll put a face in or something. We probably will. I mean, it's me. I kind of have to put a face in it. But there's a little bit of like a fade here. Cool. Perfect. Could put a fade in the wings too, but I like the line work on the complex background. I'm gonna make some powerful moves here. You know what I think I'm gonna do? We're gonna have the set of thin wings coming out, and then maybe we'll get some rays of light like coming way out of the angel in the center. I think that would be tight. So let's do that. The second layer of wings though, do I want to do it in straight white? I kind of don't. I want to do something a little bit more interesting. The problem though is I would go to a blue, but then we have the blue here with the clouds. That could be good. The wings are the same colors as the clouds. Man, I'm really torn. Really torn right now. I think, you know what I'll do is I'll grab the blue purple and we'll mix that in with the white. I don't want it to read as like purple, but I don't want it to be straight white either. When you're using painting, if something is 100% white, it's really a powerful maneuver. It really sings out from the rest of the picture. You usually don't want that, actually. Okay, I'm cool with this. Let's try and just come in. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, we're gonna roll with that. I could have them be a few different colors, but I don't want to introduce too much complexity. I was actually even worried it would look like a wing at all, so. Yeah, this is dope. Cool. We're pushing it a little bit here. You know, it's kind of fun sometimes to see what you can get away with. You know, if you're doing art for someone or people are watching, I mean, you're watching me right now, but I don't care. Normally, you know, you have to play it safe, but sometimes it's fun to see what you can get away with. You know, to see if something will read or to see if something will translate well. That's kind of what we're doing right now. I wasn't actually even sure this would read at all, but yeah, and this kind of color fade that we got with the line here, that would be dope to harness. This isn't like, I don't know how obvious it is to you, this isn't like a trick of the camera. The white actually transitions right into the blue. It's kind of just a nice little, very pretentious art language. Nice little painting moment there. Nice little painting moment. Alright, I'm going to come around here. Perfect. Cool. And you can see by using the darker color in the second layer of wings, I really got that effect that I wanted. I mean, we're doing this kind of fast and loose, but you can see the white wings in the front, they are more in the front. I wanted it to be a little bit more integrated with the background. Cool. It's kind of like sketching painting in a way. I mean, I'm trying my best, but I'm also not so concerned about it going perfectly. Perfect. Oh, got the napkin on the screen. Amateur hour. Perfect. Let's get one more going on here. Boom. Perfect. Okay. Cool. Cool. And here's what we're gonna do. So I am enjoying the chaos a little bit, I guess you could say, but I want to clean it up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of this darker, that, you know, I don't know what to call this color. It's almost like berry color, honestly. Oh, we got white in here, though. Now it's not going to work. So I'm going to grab a little bit of this darker blue-purple. Here, this is perfect. And I'm just going to fade out a little bit under the wings to give us a little bit of a subtle push-off and distinction from the background. And maybe we'll get some light rays coming out, and then we're going to see where we're at. This is one of those ones where I actually have no idea how close to ending we are, nor will I know that probably until we suddenly arrive at the final station. See, this is way too dark. I wanted this to be, yeah, like that. Just a little bit of a subtle, there we go, perfect. Push off from the background. Not even sure how much of a difference this will make, but let's see if I can just get in here. It's hard because the white paint is still wet, but you know. Perfect. Yeah, this is what we want. Instead of coloring in the wings, I'm coloring in the ground behind the wings. Yeah, look, that looks dope. This little like note of like the paint strokes there. That's how they used to shade old paintings. I don't know if people know that. But if you get up really close to them, sometimes you can see that like touch of like the painting strokes. Especially in icons, you see that. In medieval paint, you see that too. Come in here, perfect. I'm going kind of slower than I would normally just because ideally the process that I'm doing right now, not that it would be perfect, but if this shading that I'm doing bleeds into the white too much, it'll just kind of like negate the whole point of what I'm doing. The whole point here is that I'm trying to create the illusion a little bit that this is not right on the background, there's like a shadow behind it, or that there's a layer of paint behind it. So that's why I'm just going a little bit slower than I normally would. But I think it'll be worth it. Perfect. It's interesting running a painting show, honestly, because there's sort of a little bit of a fine line between, you know, when you do radio, they say, you know, you don't want dead air. But there's something about just like letting the process kind of do its thing. Sometimes when I'm doing the show, I feel like I'm almost like talking over the painting. You know, like I'll be telling some like crazy story and I won't even be mentally participating in what I'm doing like right in front of me. Okay. Okay. This is kind of crazy. I guess, you know, I'm kind of copping out a little bit. Let's start thinking about what we want to do here, because I'm going to throw some light rays in the back. I know that's going to be tight. It's going to make it a little bit crazier, but I'm kind of copping out a little bit because I have to do something with the center here, obviously. Like, what am I talking about? I'm really going to not fill this in right here. So that's really the big move. I mean, I'm very confident I'll come in with some yellow and just do the light rays, and it'll look really sick, obviously. But what do we want to do in the center? I mean, do I want to throw in the face? I could put in a face, and I mean, that would be kind of cool because everything has a very like watercolor-y, chaotic-y painting feel, and I could just come in with like the lion eyes and like a little, I don't know if I'd put in a mouth. Maybe just 2 lion eyes. That's kind of is part of my style. That would be pretty cool. I'm really torn about that too. But we're going to make a decision. We can't just not do it. You see that a lot in art school. If you work with like art school, I don't want to call them kids, but people in art school sometimes they'll come to you and they'll even have like the whole figure drawn out and they'll have a really cool drawing, you know, and the face is blank. And they don't say it, but it's because they got to a certain point where they were like, dang, like, I don't want to ruin it. And that's what happens. That's not what's happening to me here, but I'm in danger of that happening. I guess I am going to paint this in white. I don't know why I'm so torn about that. I'm worried that once I paint it in white, it's going to be I'm going to lose any visual contrast there. So if that's the issue, if I'm worried about losing the visual contrast, what I'm going to do is I'll come in with the white here, and then maybe I'll just put a black ring around it. And maybe we'll just put a ring of darkness around the white here. Maybe that's a correct intuition I have to not want to lose that visual contrast in the center. Yeah, that is what we're going to do. That's true, actually. That is a good idea. Okay, I just want to get the white off my brush. I almost want to throw the black in. What am I doing? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna throw the black in right now. Yeah. Oh, word Hatcher. Nice. Yeah, Hatcher said single eye. Yeah, single eye could be the move. I'm tempted. Sometimes the single eye gives people a little bit of an Illuminati vibe. I'm definitely not saying it has that, but sometimes it gives people that. Okay. And I'm just going to kind of pick this up a little bit. Nice. Man, the paper towels, who knew that was like the dankest painting tool, honestly. The black and white in the center is tight, but it's a little, I don't want to say evil looking. It's a little much. Oh, I knew I was going to do that. I put my paint in my drinking cup. So I'm going to come in here and just see what I can, again, I just want to see what I can get away with. That purple's really dark. It almost looks like black. Honestly, what I kind of want to do is lean into like a little bit of the humorous aspect of it and put the lion eyes in with the red cheeks. Sometimes you see the angels with those red cheeks in older paintings, and I think it would be really funny. I do like the element of humor sometimes. I think I might do that. I'm kind of like trying not to do that, but the further we go along, I feel it calling to me. I feel the inevitable conclusion of the kind of play on like the rosy cheek angel babies, because I was looking at that today. I was literally looking at it today. One of my favorite paintings of Mary has, there we go. Oh, nice. That little pink shine in there is perfect. One of my favorite paintings of Mary, you can look it up if you want. It's by Guido Reni. Guido Reni is an appreciated Renaissance artist. If you want to sound cool, you're talking to people, and let's say you get in a situation where people are pressing you to name your favorite Renaissance artist, Guido Reni is a really good one that people don't know about. If anyone's taking notes, don't be taking notes while you're watching this. It's supposed to be a casual thing. but he has a painting called Charity that I really love a lot. He has a painting called The Immaculate Conception that I really like a lot. He has a painting of Michael fighting Satan that's really awesome. And The Immaculate Conception is like baby head angel Mecca. Like it's just packed out with these, like she's on a cloud, these little baby head angels are picking her up, and then her halo is almost like made of these like shimmering baby head angels. I feel like after I saw that, I was like, man, baby head angels are tight. I'm going to use those now. Someone asked, Man Against Time said, maybe late to this, but what do you do with these paintings when you're finished? Are they available on your website? I don't put them directly on my website. I guess I should actually, but I do sell them. Pretty much anytime someone messages me, if I still have it, if someone else already hasn't already bought it, yeah, I do sell them. And actually, not to shill, but I do like selling them and getting them out of here, because otherwise I just put them in a big storage drawer and then like that's where they live for the rest of their life. So yeah, if you want one, hit me up. You can DM me or email me or whatever. How do you spell that? Guido? Like a Guido? Like maybe you did not grow up in a place with Italian Americans, but Guido, and Reni is Reni. And actually, so we have to wait a second. We have to wait for this white to dry here. I'll put in the shining stuff on the outside. And actually, Guido Reni has a really, his really funny sort of arc to his life, because if you look up that painting where it's got to be Guido Reni. I really don't think I'm mixing up two people. Urbino? I feel like I might be mixing up two Renaissance painters right now. I didn't prep this story, but I'm pretty sure it's Guido Reni. I'll look it up in a second. If we have to wait for like paint to dry, I'll look it up. But I'm like 99% sure it's Guido Reni. 99% sure it's Guido Reni. But now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wait, is it a guy whose name has a U in it? Like Urban or something? But I think it's Guido Reni. Either way, I think it's Guido Reni. He painted this picture of a... Okay, wait, so I just want to make sure I don't mess this up right now. I really want to put in some light rays, honestly. I just feel like that's the move. I mean, we could play it safe and not do that, but I mean, come on, we came this far together. So I'm just going to go for it. It's going to really change the vibe, but I think it's a good idea with all the darkness and stuff. And, you know, if we need to come back and mitigate them, I'll probably come back and pick up parts of them so it doesn't look like they were just added at the very end, but that's what we're going to do right now. Perfect. Okay, same deal here. We're just going to come in. Perfect. You know, we're really like right on the edge of, not to go full Jordan Peterson, but we really are right on the edge of chaos here on this painting. Like it almost is totally crazy, but it actually does still carry what I'm trying to get across here. And that's a really good space to try and occupy when you're doing art. You know, seeing how much you can push. Perfect. How much you can push it. You know, you can always play it safe, right? But you only get so many opportunities to try and push the envelope. All right, cool. And I am going to do what I just said. I am going to pick up parts of this. Boom. Because I don't want it to just seem like it was just added at the end. Come through here. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, look at that. So good. So good when you get the line in the back and it's still picked up. So good. Cool. Yeah. Oh, dude, now we're talking right now. In fact, I can almost get a little bit of the color coming out with the paper towel. It's actually pretty awesome. Cool. And I feel like I need a cooler color with the beams too, actually. I don't know, actually. I'm a little bit torn on that one. Maybe just the straight yellow, but I didn't like how the straight yellow looked before. I feel like I need a very subtle recapitulation. Sometimes I think of how to say something in my head and it sounds too pretentious and I'm literally trying to like dumb it down, but we need like a subtle like recapitulation of this like beam motif basically. We need like a subtle reiteration of it sort of like vibrating in the background. So I'm just going to come in with the blue. There we go. It's literally perfect. It's perfect. Sometimes when you're doing paintings and stuff, especially like this, you want these little details like this where it's like someone wouldn't notice it, you know, like you wouldn't look at the picture and notice the details, but they actually augment, they support the details that you do want them to notice. That happens a lot actually in painting. And that's part of why if you go to a museum, you know, you want to look at, if you go to a museum, this is a really pro tip. You should go to museums, by the way. But when you look at art, you should really look at it for a long time, because that's like how you can really enhance your own art, because there's stuff going on that you wouldn't notice. That is what is allowing you to pick up on the stuff that you do like, that you do notice. Not, this isn't like some masterpiece or something, but if you do go look at some masterpiece, like, you know, you'll notice things like that. Like after you look at it for a while, you'll be like, oh wow, like the fact that this woman's necklace is the same color as the background is like highlighting her hair, or things like that. It's like little things, you know, maybe it's not even usually verbal. You can't really usually explain it, but there are things like that going on. All right, cool. Okay, so I feel like honestly, we gotta come in with the face. We gotta do it. I mean, I can't fight the inevitable conclusion. It's just, you know, it's funny because it's kind of like part of my style in a way. I didn't know why for a while, but like humor, I guess, in a way. Not that it has to be humorous, but I think we're gonna come in with the eyes. We got this circle, right? I mean, honestly, I feel like that's just the move. And I feel like it would be good to get the little, just like a hint of like the baby angel. Because then it's kind of cool, because then we have kind of like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a chaotic, one of those, it's like a chaotic baby angel. The baby angels are always so cute, you know, but angels are really supposed to be these like terrifying, like horrifying creatures, you know. So maybe that's the point. Where's my brush? Where's my brush? It's right here. So yeah, I want to make sure this is totally dry. I think it is, but I don't want to touch it. So I'll tell you that story about Guido Reni, and then we're going to wrap this up. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we'll wrap it up. Maybe we won't. But Guido Reni got contracted to make this image of Michael, Archangel Michael, obviously, killing Satan. And long story short, it was for this like private chapel, I guess. Don't like quote this story, because I haven't thought about this in like years, but it's a funny story. It's something like this, you know. So basically there was this cardinal that nobody liked at the time, and he had a very distinct look, and the guy commissioning it, or maybe it was Guido Reni's idea or whatever, they both didn't like this guy. So they were like, oh, when you make Satan, make him this cardinal, you know, that'd be really funny. So he did, and if you look at the painting, you can see the guy. It's a very distinct look, and apparently it was like this real guy, you know. I want a smaller brush than this, actually, so I'm going to find it while I'm talking to you. So he made the cardinal Satan. But then apparently, like, I guess a lot of people came to see it, and it was really obvious, and he got in trouble, so he had to leave Rome. So he leaves Rome, and he travels around, and what happened to him in another town he got to is he's such a good painter that he got there, and he was, like, getting all the commissions, and the other painters were like, if you don't leave, we're going to kill you. Literally, apparently the story is they were like, yeah, you need to leave, otherwise we're going to poison you. We're going to put poison in your food. And you'll die. So he had to leave that town too. And that's basically a good story, right? Good beginning, middle, and end. But he was a really dope guy. Okay. If you look up his charity painting, it's literally one of my favorite paintings of all time. So good. So good. Okay, I'm just going to come in here and do this right now. Ugh. Perfect. They're almost too thin, but I actually really like it. It's almost too thin, but it's good. It's good for that reason. That's not me ringing the bell like we're done. And I gotta put in, I gotta do it. I gotta be true to myself. I gotta put in the pink, just a little bit. Hint o' pink cheeks, just a tiny bit, because that's just the move. That's just the move. I swear I had a different brush here a second ago, but I'm just going to let it go. I just got to really get all the color off this brush, because if I come in with the pink, then if it has black in it, it's not really gonna look good. Okay, where's the white? The white's right here. Perfect. And I'm almost tempted to come in with an even smaller brush and just kind of like dry brush it in a little bit looser. In fact, since that is my instinct, that is what I'm going to do. Let's Let's see, what small brush do I want to use? I almost want to use one of the crazy small ones over here. But I'll use this one. This is... No, you know what, actually... Man, I'm really torn. I'm just going to stay with the brush that I've been using this whole time. Okay. This will be the last detail, and I think we're going to wrap this up. Perfect. You know, one other thing, this has nothing to do with the painting that we're working on now, but I was thinking about it. One other thing that's interesting to break artists down in terms of is the kind of women that they find attractive also, which you can tell in their paintings. That's something that's pretty interesting for me. If you go back in the Renaissance guys, you know, you can kind of tell what their taste in women was. And I suspect Guido Reni and I find the same kind of women attractive. Sorry, this is supposed to be a Christian art show. Let me rephrase that. What types of women these painters use to represent divine beauty and the peak of God's creation. That's how we should phrase that. But it's interesting, you know, Raphael had like a certain kind of woman that he obviously chose to use in his paintings. Guido Reni did. All the guys did. And actually there's another really, if anyone wants more homework, I couldn't find it last time I looked for it, but I will find it. But Raphael has this crazy story of like not wanting to paint the Virgin Mary because he thought he wouldn't do a good enough job, which I can definitely sympathize with, obviously. But then apparently he had some vision, like he woke up in the middle of the night and literally saw this like divine image of her on the wall. That was like a living painting of her, and then only after that did he move along and paint her. It's a really crazy story. I thought it was in Vasari's Life of the Artist, but I'm not sure. This isn't pink enough. Oh man, nice. So good. So good. Yeah, perfect. Perfect level of subtle. Oh, we're definitely done. We're definitely done. Come on. Perfect. That's the perfect level of subtle, because I didn't want it to be like anime, like boom, like it's pink, but I want just a little bit of like the hint of like the rosy cheeks. But then it also functions as like cheek lighting, like maybe it's just the cheeks that are lit from above. It's perfect. It's perfect. Okay. But I gotta move the palette so we can see it on its own. Yeah. I mentioned in the beginning, but if you don't put Addo in Cyclops, I'm not going to see your chat message. But someone said the line eyes immediately Owenicized the adverb, the adjective version of my name. This piece. Yeah, that happens. I mean, I can hide my style, but it's like, why? Why hide it? Does the lion hide its mane? No, it does not. All right. I'm going to move some things around here. Haha, nice. This is a cool one. It's one of the cooler ones so far, for sure. I'm going to bring some light over. Nice. Move this stuff. Move this stuff. Always got to keep a razor blade around the art studio. Sharpen pencils and things like that. Nice. All right. Cool. Well, as predicted, we just sort of suddenly arrived at the conclusion here. I'm going to move this board, too. Actually, I'm not, because the camera's focused. The camera's focused for it. Let's see. Yeah. I'm just tilting it so we can see. I'm looking at the screen, so I'm seeing what you're seeing. Just kind of cool tilting a little bit. It's kind of like you remind yourself it's like an actual physical painting. You know what I mean? It's not just like a digital pixel thing. Nice. It almost looks more accurate, actually, if I tilt it up like this. Cool. Well, if you've watched the show before, you know at the end I always say, well, I feel like I need to recap, but you were just here. So there's no need to recap what just happened. But conclusion style, well, you know, I mean, it's kind of interesting. You can see why, you know, a little meta-creative note, I guess. You can see why, in my mind, when I'm planning the show, it's a really double-edged sword. Because if I plan out something, then, you know, we're slavishly adhering to You know, if we're planning, if I have a plan, then things have to go according to plan. And when things go wrong, things can go wrong. That's really what I'm trying to say. It's like Sun Tzu, Art of War. If you have a plan, things can go not according to plan. But if you have no plan, then nothing can go wrong because you have no plan, right? It's kind of like a little paradox. But if you have no set destination, then you can't make a wrong turn because you're just seeing what happens, right? So it's kind of interesting planning the show because I do feel that tension between let's just wing it. We have no idea what's going to happen. That's kind of the most fun, exciting thing, right? Versus like I feel like I should have a plan or some direction. So it's kind of interesting navigating that. But here I had no idea what was going to happen, and I think it turned out really, really, really well. I think maybe the mitigation between those two, kind of resolving that duality, is like having a theme, sort of like an idea. I mean, I think of myself as an illustrator, not a fine art painter. So having an idea and then taking that idea and seeing how it channels out, but maybe that's the direction we'll go in. But we'll see. Anyway, I think this was a very successful one. Nice. People are saying they like it in the chat. Thank you. Thanks for being here. I really do enjoy doing this. I look forward to it throughout the week for sure. And it's a very fun manifestation of what I do here in the studio. So thank you for coming through. Any other notes I should say before we wrap up? I always feel like I need a monologue. Not really, man. I got a lot of dope stuff going on. I got prints transpiring. If you want to get on the list for prints, like the fine art prints that are framed and stuff here, DM me or email me. I got a bunch of stuff going down with that. New color scheme. I'm going to drop the rosary prints in a new color scheme. Making more angelology prints. I don't think I showed it on here. Maybe I did one time, but I have this cryptid print. I'm going to do another vibe pack with these smaller prints, and I got this cryptid one. But I got a lot of stuff going on, so it'll be cool. John Fiber said, will you do more than art streams? Yeah, if you mean other stuff, I do have some ideas for other things. I have kind of a whole process of prepping muslin. It's this cloth to make these kind of like scroll paintings that I really like doing that I want to do a video on. And I do have other ideas for videos. The video thing is a very new territory for me. I don't know exactly how to totally control it. I'm more used to writing and doing comics. But yeah, I do want to do more video stuff. Thanks for asking. I suppose that implies that you enjoy it. And last question, then we're going to keep it. Then we're going to bounce out. Are the CMYK paints as appetizing as your others? Not exactly, honestly. With the real pigments, when you look at them, you want to like eat them. You want to like put them in your mouth or like touch them. They're very like enticing. With the real pigments, you know, if I just put it on a piece of paper and you looked at it, it looks really nice. So not that these look bad, but I wouldn't say it's the same thing at all. I bet these are like chemical pigments of some kind, although I didn't check. I'm fairly confident of that. That's kind of the interesting thing, you know, working with different tools. It's kind of like music, honestly, you know. If you take a grand piano, you're starting from a different point than if you take like a little synthesizer, and it's going to take you in different directions because you can lean on the materials in different ways. That's actually exactly what art is like in general. Anyway, that's the show. Thanks for coming through. Thanks for being a part of the whole operation. And now we return back to, as the Seventh-day Adventists would say, back to the great controversy, the great battle between God and Satan. We return back to the battlefield. This was a nice oasis, but we must get back. We get back now. So thanks for hanging out, and I will see you guys on the internet where we all hang out together. There's no outro yet, but soon there will be, but there's not now, so I'm pressing the button.